The Senate asked to see Kenneth Copeland's bank records in 2007, but he refused. He said that only God could judge how rich he was. He lives in an 18,000 square foot lakefront home that doesn't have to pay property tax. He has three $19 million private planes. His work brings in $100 million every year. And people who used to work for him say he told them they would be punished by God if they ever spoke out. This is what takes place when faith turns into a business. You said you don't like flying commercial because you don't want to be in a tube with a bunch of monsters. Are you sure that people are actually demons? I don't know. Don't ever say I did it. There are parts of my day I would have to stop if I took a regular flight. Ken Copeland was born in Lubbock, Texas on December 6, 1936. His house was close to a military airport and he loved watching the planes fly by for hours on end. He was always interested in flying even when he was young. After many years it would become much more controversial with private planes, airport runways, and claims of greed. These days his ministry has a fleet of planes such as a 1998 Cessna Citation Bravo and a 2005 Citation X for long trips across foreign borders. In 2018 they added a Gulfstream V that Tyler Perry used to own. There is even Kenneth Copeland Airport at the church. It is on 33 acres of land that used to be a Navy base. But that power in the sky would not come until a lot later. Copeland had a very different dream in the 1950s. His job in 1957 wasn't to preach. He was singing. His song Pledge of Love stayed at number 17 on the Billboard charts for 15 weeks. It wasn't just a one-hit wonder, it was a real job in music. On stage with Elvis Presley and Patsy Cline, the man was even better. Copeland looked like a pop music star on the rise for a short time. Fame didn't make things better for him though. The wedding took place when he was only 19 years old. They had a girl named Terry, but by 1958 their marriage was over. He married Cynthia Davis not long after that. That one also didn't last. It's been 3 years and there are still no children. He was married twice before he was 25 and both broken up. Inside his life was a mess. His singing career had come to a stop. He was just floating. Then there was a tent rebirth in 1962. A man in pain who was sitting in the back and trying to find something that would work. Who was the speaker that night? Oral Roberts. Copeland knew something was different. It wasn't just another church meeting. It was very strong. Everything changed at that time. He gave up his singing dreams to follow Roberts. At the beginning of 1967 he started at Oral Roberts University. But that wasn't easy either. A few months earlier on Halloween night 1966, Copeland and his family were in a very bad car accident in Marshall, Texas. It meant something to him from God. He didn't have any money for school when he got to Oro. He did sign up on January 24, 1967 though. He said that day was the start of Kenneth Copeland Ministries. Then something strange took place. He was hired right away by Oral Roberts to be his co-pilot and personal driver. The job was more than just a way to make money. Roberts was flown across the country by Copeland, took him to revival meetings and sat quietly while the famous speaker planned his sermons. Copeland couldn't talk, he could only drive, watch and learn. Roberts would sometimes tell him to preach to the people in the sick tent what he himself preaches. Copeland did. People who are sick and hopeless. He was the one who told them before Roberts came in to lay hands. It was like practicing in the fire. Gloria, Kenneth's third wife whom he married in 1963, was making her own home while he was traveling. Even though she wasn't a student at Oro, she studied like it was her life, every day for hours. There was no TV, only tapes of Kenneth Hagin who started the Word of Faith movement. She took in everything they taught her. When Kenneth got home, the Bible and rules were being followed all the time. Each of them became very focused on a single idea. Having faith gets results, especially when it comes to money. In March 1967 the big break came. Kenneth was strolling along a dry stream in Arkansas not far from Tulsa. He says it was clear and straight that God spoke to him there. What is the message? Tell everyone about the truth. That moment became the most important part of who he was. He promised, I'm going to preach from the top of the world to the bottom and all the way around the middle. That was more than just a motto. It spread around the world. In the 1970s Copeland was really into Kenneth Hagin's ideas. He and Gloria went to several 10-day seminars where they learned that God wants Christians to do well financially as well as spiritually. They blocked out noise, shut down the world. He told me that their faith got so strong that teachers at Oro started coming to him to pray. Gloria was learning about theology at home while Kenneth was on the road learning from Oral Roberts. The parts they played were perfectly balanced. He got experience in the field. She added to its spiritual depth. It would become a force with that balance. In later years, Gloria would co-host their TV shows, write books, and teach him about how to be wealthy. It wasn't by chance that Copeland got a job as a televangelist in the 1960s. He was in the right place and had the right skills, especially his license to fly. He took religious leaders to meetings and crusades in private jets during a time when they were hard to find and cost a lot of money. What he really did, though, was watch, learning how to run huge businesses, talk to large groups of people, and raise money. He was there for Oral Roberts' last tent crusade, which marked the end of an age. After that, the revival tents were taken down, and the era of TV show wealth started. Copeland was all set. He spoke the language. He knew the tune. He knew how to make faith work for the good. They said it was not possible. That changed in 1967, when a man almost 30 years old who didn't have any money for college, started what would become one of the most powerful missions in modern history. K. Copeland was his name. In the same year, he said he heard God's words while standing in a dry Arkansas riverbed. What is the message? One day all nations will be one, and this service will help some of them get there. It sounded crazy. Before that, Copeland had never preached to more than 300 people, but he didn't wait to get known. Right then and there, he began Kenneth Copeland Ministries. He said Jesus is Lord, from the very beginning. A business plan that would make televangelism a billion-dollar business was hidden behind the Bible verse. People gave him money because he preached that wealth was a sign of God's favor and that giving to his church would bring money. So far as 1973 goes, Copeland has put out a tiny 4-page paper. It had the name Believer's Voice of Victory on it. Copeland was different from most organizations that charge for membership. He said that God told him, "This is your seed. It should be given to everyone who reacts to your ministry. Don't charge." It sounded nice, but it was really smart. The magazine wasn't just writing, it was also a lure. Trust lists and donations were all built that way. At first he only had 3,000 receivers. It was 20,000 after 2 years. Let's go to 2025, and the free magazine had grown into a glossy 32-page book with over 362,000 members around the world. It took a huge amount of work just in Europe. Every month, copies were flown from Texas to the UK and packed by hand by staff. The magazine came out in 2002 in German, 2016 in French, and will be interactive in 2020. What began as a small pamphlet had grown into a worldwide printing business that supplied an expanding kingdom. Then 1975 came along. The radio alarm went off as soon as Copeland turned it on. He started with just 10 stations. In just 1 year, the ministry was on more than 500 stations in the US and Canada. It got to 700 by the end of that year. It was called the fastest-growing religious talk show in the history of radio. At first, Copeland didn't like radio and thought it was annoying. He didn't give up, though. He kept going because he said God told him to preach on every voice that was available. The money came after. More stations meant more people could listen. More listeners meant more money was given. The number of cassette tapes the ministry made rose from $27,000 a year to $171,000 a year. The message was on each tape. Each gift paid for the next big step forward. In 1989, that jump happened. Putting out a daily TV show was Copeland's biggest risk yet. Daily, not once a week. He said it was their biggest and bravest act of faith ever. Everything changed. The Believer's Voice of Victory TV show could now reach up to 2.3 billion people around the world. The roots were put down many years ago. In 1979, he tried TV for the first time with Sunday shows and a short series called The Word of Faith. It worked better when it was done every day, though it did so well that by 2015 Copeland had made Believer's Voice of Victory Network his own full-time TV station. It changed its name to Victory Channel in 2019. It was on Sky, Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and YouTube 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The Televangelist had his own world media network. He used to be poor and couldn't afford school. Because these organizations aren't required to report the money they get in donations, no one can say for sure how many millions of dollars they get every year. However, Copeland did not only think about the US. The whole world was his. He opened offices in Africa, Asia, Australia, Europe, Ukraine, Canada, and the United States. It was mind-boggling how many of them there were. Each one was both a church outreach and a regional donation hub. It helped more than 7,300 partners, 13,200 to 2,225 friends, 2,095 children, and 2,224 criminals in Africa. Every month they sent 22,749 magazines to 54 countries. In Europe, the office opened in 1982 in Bath, England. It now has more than 5,500 partners and 9,300 friends, and every month it sends out papers in 3 languages. It was the numbers from Ukraine that shocked everyone the most. In 1994, right after communism fell, the ministry opened there. It now has more than 24,000 partners and 80,000 friends and sends almost 64,000 Russian language papers to 57 countries. Also, they've given away more than 15 million free Bibles and books. In Australia, it reaches even more people. The government wants 20 million people to watch their TV shows. It sends magazines by mail to more than 21,000 homes in 40 countries on 3 continents. Kenneth Copeland did a lot of work with the idea that having faith could make you rich. God would give you 100 times the amount of money you gave if you trusted in Him enough, said the right things, and most importantly gave money. It wasn't a figure of speech, it was an exchange of money. If you give, you will get. This thought did not appear out of thin air. From a mix of Pentecostal fire, New Thought, hope, and American drive, it grew. Kate Bowler, a historian, talks about how it all came together to make something strong. A thought that God was more than just a rescuer, He was also a business partner. Copeland said that the Bible is a promise. You give money and hope. You have safety, health, and money because God loves you. Something is wrong if you're poor or sick. Your heart, your faith, and the things you give. That word seed became very important. Seed faith meant cash. Donations were taken care of like crops. You plant now by giving. In the end, God gives you a crop. The more you plant, the more you'll get back. It looked like spiritual farming on paper. In fact, it turned into a well-oiled machine for collecting donations. You can pay online, by letter, over the phone, or even by text message. Even though millions of dollars came in, people who used to work for the Copelands say they rarely read the prayer requests that came with the gifts. One former worker thought that the Copelands saw 0% of them. It wasn't just a matter of faith, it was a building for people who were needy. A lot of people asked for prayers, and most of them were already having money problems. The texts broke my heart. People pleading for money to pay their rent, to get better, or for something to happen. They asked for help, but the ministry told them to give more. The way out of being poor: give more cash, get rid of the curse. Show that you believe. Some fans gave away the last of their savings. Some borrowed money. Everyone was told there would be a miracle. Behind the scenes, people in the mailroom sorted the cash. 2 ministers held sealed envelopes in their hands. The Copeland family never opened any of them. Still, the claims kept getting bigger. Copeland didn't just talk about getting rich, he also preached about God. In 1987, he said that people who believed were gods, not in a figurative or symbolic way. He told the crowd, "When I read where God tells Moses I am, I say, yeah, I am too." Copeland says that people were made in the God class. After Jesus died, that God position was brought back. People who believed were not only lucky but also strong. Being able to dream up money and health. He told them, "You're all God just like God. There is no God in you. You are one." Some people said it was folly. Copeland didn't care. He went even further and said that Jesus never said he was God while he was on earth. He also said that we all had divine power, especially over money. Even though it was a crazy belief, it was what held the whole business together. You should have a lot of money if you were like God. Without a doubt, you could order health. It was clear that gifts worked like investments. It wasn't the doctrine's fault if you didn't get rich though. You did that, not even the Bible was safe from this new view. Copeland picked and chose texts to support what he said. He had a lot of money. That means God wants us to be rich too. Solomon had gold. So wealth comes from God. Jesus said we would have a good life. That has to do with money. That's not important. Jesus also said that a camel could fit through a needle easier than a rich person could get into heaven. Or that he told people to give the poor what they owned. It looks more like the home of a billionaire than the home of a man of God. It's 18,279 square feet. It was built in 1999 in Texas, right next to Eagle Mountain Lake. The house has 6 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, and a beautiful view of the lake. It's everything a CEO could want, but Copeland doesn't actually own it. The title is held by his church, Eagle Mountain International. It's called a parsonage, which means it's a home for preachers. That label means one big thing. There is no property tax. By Texas law, no one can touch that house. It was valued at $10.8 million in 2020, even though the church had claimed that the county had suddenly lowered the value to $7 million. In 2015, Copeland told his fans that God told him to build his wife a house. He told her, "It's part of your prosperity. It doesn't matter what you think. I heard something from heaven." That house on the lake was just the start. It's right next to his house and is called his own airport. Yes, it is a real private airport. It used to be a base for the Marines. It is now known as Kenneth Copeland Airport. The runway is almost 6,000 feet long. The jets are parked not far from his front door. Among them is a $3 million Gulfstream Vive that he got from Tyler Perry. He was asked by a reporter in 2019 why he needed private jets. Copeland didn't think twice. "I would have to stop doing 65% of the things I'm doing if I flew airline." He then went even further. Business planes, he said, were like a long tube full of devils. It got bad in that talk. He told the reporter, "That's none of your business," when they asked about the deal with Tyler Perry. He then said with a proud grin, "He made it so cheap that I had to buy it." His airport and jets were still not paid for in full. The government raised $17.5 million to improve the hangar, but they still wanted an extra $19.5 million for tax-free aircraft repair. It was all for the sake of service. But it's not just about jets and homes. Texas law makes it clear that parsonage permits can only be used on 1 acre of land, but Copeland's land is 25 acres big, and that extra land, just $125,000 in value. That's so funny. The experts say it's worth a lot of money. The church pays less than $3,000 a year in taxes on that land. Though, they have a secret deal with Tarrant County because of this. That huge house should be taxed more than $150,000 a year. That's not what they pay. It takes up 1,400 acres for him to set up everything. It's worth almost $60 million, but the house, land, and airport as a whole pay only $23,000 in property taxes every year. People in the real world pay less than that for a small house. It looks like something is not right. Even the county assessor agreed. As far as the law is concerned, it does happen. And Copeland's power doesn't stop there. His houses are hidden away in the Rocky Mountains and other faraway places that can only be reached by private jet. His church owns workshops, warehouses, and homes for staff. Their property collection is more like a big business than a church. They even get tax breaks for farming, which helps. Sure, farmland prices go down for a television empire near Fort Worth. Limos are how he gets around. The clothes he wears are designer. He always calls it service. Hundreds of people work for his company, between 266 and 500. There are bands in some churches. Copeland's has a full crew for making movies. The mask came off completely in 2019. He told the camera, "I'm a very rich man. There is no shame or pause." He smiled when the reporter asked him how he became so rich. "My wealth doesn't just come from gifts." Then there was a twist. "There is natural gas on my land. You didn't know that, did you?" His worth is thought to be between $300 million and $750 million. Some say the settlement was about $450 million. He says that his work has brought 122 million people to Jesus and given $20 to $25 million a year to help the poor. Then he dropped the line that made him who he was. "Not able to do that since I'm poor." He didn't blink when he was told that some people think pastors shouldn't live this way. They're not right. It doesn't make sense based on the Bible. Every year his organization makes between $18 million and $100 million. The machine runs on sales of books, DVDs, TV shows, and global conferences. Each and every dollar goes through a system that is protected by law loopholes and religious exemptions. On November 5, 2007, Senator Chuck Grassley began an in-depth investigation into 6 well-known televangelists. One of them was Kenneth Copeland. People thought of his name when they thought of money, private jets, and divine success. But behind the curtain there were a lot of questions. There were questions about whether gifts meant for God were being used to pay for fancy homes and Rolls Royces instead. Grassley, who is the top senator on the Finance Committee, wanted to know what was going on. It wasn't just spiritual claims that were being looked into. It had to do with money. The ministry of Copeland, along with those of Benny Hinn and Joyce Meyer, was told to hand over specific financial records. On December 6, 2007, the due date was set. Investigators wanted to know how much was spent on travel and salaries and if tax-free gifts were being misused. They were shocked by what they found, but not because they worked together. Copeland's mission kept getting in the way at every turn. Some ministries reacted by making changes or at least trying to work together, but Copeland's team refused. They said that Congress didn't have the power to ask for their records, only the IRS did. By March 2008, Grassley had to send more notes just to get a simple answer. The Copelands still wouldn't move. Their refusal got so bad that it messed up the whole probe. In the end, the Senate changed its mind. Not a single fine or penalty. But the harm was already clear. Inside the ministry, people who used to work there painted a much darker picture. As a brave act, one of them told the Senate that Copeland's team used guerrilla tactics to silence anyone who tried to speak out. Workers were told that God would punish them. Told that coming out against Copeland was like touching God's chosen one. That their families would suffer and that their money would disappear. Others didn't say anything because they were afraid of the law. They signed deals to keep things secret and were told they could be sued. The ministry even told present employees to make whistleblowers feel like they were outcasts. It worked to scare people. The workers were quiet, records were kept secret, and there was a wall in the Senate. In his final report, Grassley talked about how hard it was to get even simple information from Copeland Ministries. It was tried by the committee. The Copelands slammed the door shut. Some of what was so annoying was that no one outside the ministry knew much about the money it had. Tax records for salaries were last kept up to date in 1995. Ken Copeland, his wife Gloria, and their family were given a total of $1.5 million at that time. The money trail got dark after that. The government said that salaries were private when asked by local officials for up-to-date pay records. One appraiser said that they knew that if they told anyone anything, it could end up in the hands of agents like Grassley. And there were a lot of them. One study about pay that was shared during the investigation said that a televangelist could make up to $2 million a year, which is a lot of money compared to celebs like Oprah and Letterman. But Copeland Ministries kept saying that no one should know about their money. The secret wasn't just odd, it was also a plan. Ken's son John Copeland fought back hard using constitutional points, which made things even more complicated. He said that when the government asked for cash information, it was going too far. It could happen to every church in America if their rights were taken away. He said in an interview in 2008, "They didn't just fight back. The whole study was seen as a threat to freedom of religion. This point of view became their shield. They said that the error was against the First Amendment. Faith speech like the prosperity gospel, which says that giving makes you rich. The Senate could have looked into it further, but the ministry's opposition made it nearly impossible to come to a firm decision. No one was punished in the end, and the case went away." When she was in the church, Gloria Copeland was more than just Kenneth's partner. It had been co-led by her since 1967. She wasn't just teaching, she was making a fortune. She helped run the ministry's business and taught at their healing school. She also appeared on their TV show every day. The people didn't know something though. In 1966, Gloria was in a car accident that seriously hurt her brain. Finally, Kenneth told her in 2022 that she was still dealing with those effects after all these years. Which meant that their public claims of healing and perfect health didn't hold water. At the same time, their kids weren't just there. They were in charge. The business side was run by John Copeland. 10-year-old daughter Terry Copeland Pearsons led the family church and the Bible college. George, her husband, was also the head of the ministry and the vice president of the college. Kelly, another daughter, played other important parts. The family made all of the important decisions. Kenneth had power over everyone in the church, even the board. He could block laws until at least 2008. It kept going. The government also did business with family businesses. Douglas Neese, Gloria's brother, ran a media company that bought time on the air for televangelists. Kenneth Copeland Ministries was his biggest client and brought in more than half of the business's income. His son also worked there. They ran their business under 13 different names and had ties to a number of for-profit companies in real estate, exercise, fuel, and even cattle. It wasn't just a church. It was a well-oiled business machine. It was also made to last. They had a property that was 1,500 acres and worth about $60 million. The name given to Kenneth's $7 million home was Parsonage. That is, it wasn't taxed. He saved more than $150,000 a year just by doing that. The government also owned their private jets, which were worth more than $19 million. For $20 million, Kenneth bought one of them because he said God told him to. Tax law kept all of this out of sight. The land, the jets, and the pay. The Copelands told their followers that they could supernaturally move wealth and told them to give money in the hopes of receiving divine rewards. However, they had already created their own version of that miracle. Only theirs had fancy homes and private jets for business. Then John Oliver showed up. In August 2015, the HBO host gave Copeland a whole section on Last Week Tonight. He showed the luxury behind the pulpit, the jet trips and the game-shooting ranches with biting humor and hard facts. Even made fun of the fact that Copeland could live in a multi-million-dollar house for free because it was a parsonage. He told the sad story of Bonnie Parker, a woman who gave a lot of money to Copeland's ministry in the hopes that her faith would fix her. Parker later died of cancer. She sent money instead of chemo. The worst part of the prosperity gospel was shown by her death. The video clip went worldwide. A lot of people watched. The incident made headlines all over the world. Oliver made up a fake church to show how easy it was to say that a business wasn't taxable. Even though all of this was going on, the Copelands stayed quiet, didn't get hurt, and kept teaching.